Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live presentation titled OPC to MQTT. My name is Randy, and I am the presenter today. This webinar is titled OPC to MQTT. We're going to talk about the problem definition itself. What problem is it that we're trying to solve? We'll talk about the solution, and then we'll specifically talk about MQTT and specifically SparkplugB. So we'll talk about those connections. We'll talk about publishing, subscribing, store and forward, bulk item configuration, troubleshooting IoT messages, and of course, we will also talk about the broker. At the end, I will tell you how to get a copy of this webinar recording and how to also download the software. So what are we talking about here? We've got information in controllers. How exactly do we get them out to MQTT? Well, MQTT provides us a very reliable and low bandwidth IoT protocol. IoT, Internet of Things. So it's a very reliable and very low bandwidth protocol, which is why it's used very widely in our industry. Now, SparkplugB very specifically is used to apply MQTT to automation. SparkplugB to MQTT is kind of like OPC to DCOM, OPC Classic, that is. OPC is really DCOM done in a very specific way that makes it very useful for automation. SparkplugB is a way to do MQTT in a very specific way that makes it useful for automation. OPC UA is a very specific way to send TCP/IP messages that makes it useful for automation. So again, SparkplugB enables MQTT to become particularly useful for automation. And it makes it very easy to send OPC Classic, OPC DA, and OPC UA data to the internet or on your own intranet. Again, the question is, how exactly do we do this? Spoiler alert, you put in OPC Expert and that gets it going. But very specifically, we're using IoT here to bring controller data, maybe it's from PLCs or DCSs or RTUs, directly to the internet or your own intranet using and this will show you where we're going first, which is we have a PLC through OPC, we get the data into OPC Expert, and we send it to an MQTT broker. So the motion is this way, from the bottom left to the top right. This communication here is OPC. This communication here is typically something proprietary to OPC to MQTT. From MQTT, from the broker, we send the information over here to another computer. So we're going to set up a broker. I'll show you how to set that up. And then we will publish the information to this broker using OPC Expert. So we'll capture the information with OPC, publish it to the broker. And then the third thing is we're going to subscribe to this data using MQTT. So using MQTT, we're going to have a subscriber and a publisher and also a broker. So we'll have all three of those right here. Now, what are we talking about here? So the key features that we're looking for as far as Windows support is on Windows Workstation, we're talking about supporting all the way from Windows XP all the way to Windows 11. That's one single application that supports XP all the way to Windows 11, and from on Windows Server all the way from Windows 2003 all the way to Windows 2022. As far as OPC support, you get OPC UA and you also get OPC Classic, DA as it's typically called. And for MQTT support, you get SparkplugB, which you can then use to send information to Microsoft Azure or Amazon, AWS. Of course, you can send data just with JSON if that's what you want to do. And I'll show you that. Also, as far as communication, you get all the security profiles for OPC Classic and OPC UA, local and remote OPC servers. You can collect data from all those with DCOM or TCP/IP, HTTP, HTTPS. So you can connect to all of those with OPC Expert. You can grab the data from local and remote OPC servers, whichever way you figure is appropriate. You also get the ability to do some store and forward, which I'll show you later on, and it enables third-party applications to connect either via REST API, for example, or MQTT or OPC. This is really supporting standards-based communication, and that's really what So once again, the architecture, for those of you that have been to previous webinars, you've seen this kind of a slide. I'll just show it in a slightly different way. We begin with OPC DA client and an OPC UA client. And of course, all of this, everything you're going to see here is all embedded within OPC Expert. So when you get the OPC Expert executable, you're actually getting this functionality. Now, this information goes into OPC Expert's intelligent engine. And this intelligent engine is what provides data for everything else. It's all dynamic, pretty cool stuff. So the idea is, from this intelligent engine, you can actually publish this information via MQTT to an MQTT broker. But of course, this intelligent engine can also get information from an MQTT subscriber. So you can bring the data in via MQTT, you can send it out via MQTT. Don't forget that this is bidirectional. So using MQTT as a subscriber, for example, we can also write. So we can write and do control, supervisory control, whatever, or you can read, and you can do the same thing from the publisher. The publisher can send out data, but it can also accept data coming in from a broker, which of course comes from a subscriber. Okay, OPC Expert also includes a broker. After all, the data is in here, so we provide you access to it with an MQTT broker as well. Now, that's not all, because of course, once the data is in this engine here, you can send it out to databases, for example, Microsoft SQL, Access, XML, CSV, MySQL, any kind of SQL you want in general. So all that can be sent out and exchanged back and forth. So you can even read or write. You can acquire data or send data with OPC alarms events or alarms and conditions. It's got its own API included as well. Now, to get the data out, this is actually kind of interesting because, of course, you can send the data out via MQTT with a publisher, but you can also access it with your OPC DA client. So it has a DA server. It has a UA server, which means you can connect to this with your OPC UA client. So anything in here you can access via OPC UA or OPC DA or even Excel. And I'm saying access notwithstanding security, because using security, I can lock you out to only allow you, for example, to read, or only allow you to write, or only allow you to read some portions and write some others. So it is completely bidirectional and it is completely secure. It's pretty cool. And important because if you have a third-party application, maybe on a phone or a tablet or on Unix somewhere, maybe somebody wrote it with Python or JavaScript or C++ or C#, they have access to this information without having to do all of the OPC information. We provide a very, very simple, easy to use REST API server here that provides access to all of this. So really, really neat stuff. In fact, the next webinar will focus on REST API. But for now, what we're focusing on very specifically is MQTT. So again, OPC Expert provides all of this, but in this case, we're just talking about MQTT. So the publisher, the subscriber, the broker, and of course, will acquire data using OPC UA and DA. So let's get to the little hand OPC and acquire data. We'll take this data and we'll send it to an MQTT broker, which in this case is OPC Expert. Now keep in mind, this will work with any MQTT broker as long as it supports MQTT. It doesn't even have to support SparkplugB, but anything that supports MQTT, OPC Expert will happily be able to connect to it just like that and send data via MQTT. And I'll show you the individual portions right away. Then we have a subscriber, and we're going to send information this way with the subscriber. So the subscriber will connect and grab the data and show the data. But this connection here is not via OPC. It's actually via MQTT. And of course, this can be on the internet. Now, just to make things a little bit smaller on this specific demo, what I did is I'm going to put this here on this computer, just so you see it's not a whole bunch of computers and it gets confusing, but these can be on the same computer. They can be on separate computers. Everything there is it can be done completely remote or local. So step number one, we're going to set up the broker. So we'll set up this broker right over here. I'll show you what it takes. And then we'll set up the publisher. So we'll acquire data, we'll gather data, and then we'll publish this data to the broker. And finally, we will set up the subscriber. So all this communication here is going to be via MQTT. So let's take a look at this. So once again, we have two computers, right? So we've got this computer here and this computer here. Let me put those up. So there's one computer, and here's the other. I'm going to make these bigger. Now, as I said, I'm going to put this broker right here on this computer. Of course, it could be on its own separate computer, but I'll put it there. Now, just before I begin showing this to you, I want to point out, when you get OPC Expert, you just download one executable. That's it. You just get this executable, you download it, and then you run it, and it will automatically extract everything it needs. So you can see it extracting everything right here. When you get it yourself, you can actually take a look at everything that's put on here. I'll close this just so I don't have junk. Here we go. And OPC Expert will pop up on my screen, and then I will begin by setting up the broker. So in this case, I'm going to go to Tools, Servers and Services, and then we go to MQTT Broker. So you can see there are a whole bunch of other services I can turn on and do a whole bunch of things. And here's the MQTT. That's all it takes to have it run as a service. I click OK, and now OPC Expert is actually setting up the broker. While it's doing that, I'll make it a bit smaller. So what OPC Expert is doing here is it's setting up this particular broker right over here. The other thing I wanted to point out, forgot to show it, is that, there we go. So there is OPC Expert MQTT Broker, right? So this is the broker, and you notice that it's running as its own separate process. It's included inside OPC Expert, but it can run as a separate process. And in this case, you can see it's running as a service running under the system account. OPC Expert.exe, that's this GUI right here. So that's separate. So it makes it much, much easier for you to manage because, of course, you can turn this off. And system tray is this one right over here. So that's the system tray. Okay, let's make this smaller again. Here we go. So this broker is right here. Now what we need to do is use OPC Expert on this computer, gather information from OPC servers. So I will actually do this from two different OPC servers, from OPC UA and OPC DA. So here we go. Just before I do that, I'll open the file location here. And you can see, once again, it's just OPC Expert. That's all there is to it. And if I go to Task Manager, you can see nothing is installed. There's no OPC Expert running here. There isn't anything at all. if I double click OPC Expert, we can see there's opcexpert.exe. We'll soon see the system tray start right away, but right now it's extracting everything. So there it goes. It extracted. This right here is OPC Expert System Tray.exe. Everything is labeled nicely for you, so you don't have to guess what everything is. Okay, so now let's open up OPC. We'll open up this computer actually, where we see a bunch of DA and UA servers. So I'll open up Iconics, Numeric, and I'll subscribe to 2 items right here. And I'll open up Textual as well, and I'll subscribe to 2 items. Of course, you can subscribe to more, but in this case, you'll see why I'm doing this later on. We'll go to the OPC Foundation, Sample Server, Dynamic, Scalar. They've done a very, very nice job with this. There we go. And now, what you're seeing is that we're subscribing to 2 OPC servers. One is DA and one is UA. So this here is data coming from OPC DA, and this over here is OPC data coming from UA. Now, we haven't used MQTT yet. So what we've done now is we're taking data from the 2 different OPC servers into OPC Expert. Now we're going to do this portion right here. So we're going to publish to this broker. So let's go put that back up. So we're going to publish to the broker. To do that, we simply right-click, Archive, Create New Archive. And here, the different ways to send, you can see we can send to Amazon or Azure. But in this case, I'm going to send it to a pure MQTT broker. Incidentally, use the same thing to send to SQL or Mongo or MySQL and so on. So different ways to send data. All right, here, I'm going to say I'd like to send it to OPC01 because here I am on OPC02. And you can see the other computer is OPC. The other computer is OPC01 right over here. So that's where I'm going to send it. You can take a look at a whole bunch of other options later on. I'll just click OK. And you can see SparkplugB, JSON. We'll talk about these later on. Oh, did I not press OK? There we go. Pressed OK. So now it's going to set up, and it finished setting up. And before I click Start, pay attention to these icons right over here. These icons will indicate whether we have problems or not. And you can see that as we start, as I click Start, it's starting up, it's setting up. Icons are red in the beginning, that's a problem. Now there are green check marks, so everything is okay. And I'm sending data right now to the broker. So I'm sending data to the broker right now. So what we've just seen is how to set up the broker and how to publish data. Okay, so I'll make this smaller again. You can always download this stuff for a demo at any time. Now I'll get back in here. In here, what I want to do is subscribe to this data. So there's my MQTT broker. You notice I can connect with 1883, non-secure or secure with 8883. I'll connect this way. SPB v1.0, that's what we need for SparkplugB. That's where all of this goes. And you can see there's a simulator. And we've got these items. And this is the reason I use 2 different folders, because you can see that folder structure replicated right over here. So this information here is coming from the UA sample server. This information over here is coming from the Iconic Simulator OPC DA server. And I can subscribe to all of it, just like that. So there we go. I subscribe to all the items, and you can see green check marks mean everything is okay. And sure enough, I'm able to get data. Now again, all of this is bidirectional, which means, of course, I can get data. So the subscriber can get data from the publisher via the broker, but the subscriber can also, so it can read, but it can also write. So you can actually write back such that this PLC sees a set point that's actually sent by the MQTT subscriber. Of course, from a security perspective, you can disable it. You can do that. You can do that based on user accounts or credentials. So you can do all that. That's all included inside. So what we've seen now is how to set up the broker, publish data, and also subscribe to data. It's very, very easy to do. And of course, you can connect to Mosquitto or any other MQTT broker that's available on the internet. Even OPC Expert, you can put it out on the internet and connect to it very, very nicely. Okay, so we've seen this. And folks, please keep the questions coming, and I will answer them as we move along. Now, I showed this as a demonstration, but let me show you something a little bit farther. So again, we have this MQTT broker, which in our case is OPC Expert. We got OPC Expert as a publisher right over here. We already saw OPC Expert as a subscriber, and I set this thing up as a broker. So we saw the OPC Expert broker. Now, one of the problems we have is if this, for example, is on the internet, we typically don't have a direct connection to the internet, right? So maybe from your level 2 network or level 1 or level 3, wherever it is you happen to be, you may not have a direct connection due to network segregation directly to the internet. So what you need are intermediate steps. Well, what we've done in OPC Expert is to keep with the standards. So very, very important. What we've done is this. Check this out. So OPC Expert provides you can actually put in hops, and these are all brokers. So these are all OPC Expert brokers, just like that, each individual one. And then you can connect these brokers one to the other. There's no special, nothing special that's actually done there. To get data or send data somewhere else. And you could do that just like this. So there is broker to broker communication. So for example, with this broker right here, I can say I want to send information over here. So for example, I can publish just like this, or I can do this, or I can do that. I'm going to show you, you can either push or you can pull the data. So number one, this helps you work with security. For example, it might be going from a high security area to a less secure area, or from less secure to more secure, or more secure to less secure. Depending on what I actually need to do, I might want to have the arrows pointing one way or another. So each OPC Expert broker can act as a destination or as a source. And whether it's a source or a destination, it can either push the data somewhere else or it can pull the data from somewhere else. What that means is, for example, here, we can open up ports over here and push from here and then pull from here. Remember, the information is going this way, so this guy would push and this guy here would pull. That's very, very possible. Or, for example, in this case, maybe what I want to do is this is in a high secure area, this is in a low secure area, so I will push information this way, so this will publish, and it will maybe subscribe to this guy over here. So again, in this case, I don't need to have any open ports. In this case, I do have open ports. In this case, I only have an open port going this way, but I have an open port coming in from here, but no open ports going outside. So this really helps you to get going with whatever security is necessary, which means that maybe somebody from IT says, look, MQTT is very nice, but here's how we need to have it. We can't have open ports here. We can only have open ports here. This needs to be more secure, less secure. Your answer is no problem. Just let me know what you want, and OPC Expert will comply with it because, like I said, it can either act as a source or a destination. And with both of those, it can either push data or pull data. Very, very cool stuff. Okay, I hope this makes sense. Feel free to ask me any of the questions. And of course, what this does too, I should really point this out, is when you have so many connections, you're bound to have something work and something not at some point. So if everything is working great, you can get all the data out to the subscriber. But you could also have the case that one of these connections, network connections, doesn't work properly. In that case, OPC Expert can store the data and forward it again when the connection is restored. And it can do that with real-time data or even with historical data, which is what MQTT enables you to do. So, folks, I hope this is making sense to you. If not, please go ahead and ask questions right now. This ends this particular portion of the webinar. I'll talk about training and troubleshooting right away, but this ends this particular demonstration I wanted to do for. If you have questions on it, please go ahead and ask. I'll say a few more words and then I'll come back and answer your questions. So very specifically, to get automated troubleshooting, all you really need to do, go ahead and download OPC Rescue or OPC Expert. Both of those will really help you out. If you download OPC Expert, you can do a whole bunch of activities: trending, bridging, tunneling, apply your security, and so on. Now, in this specific webinar, we talked about OPC UA and DA, OPC UA and OPC Classic, and we talked about MQTT. And also, very, very specific, if you want to do something else, you can do all of this. We have webinars on each one of these, and you can take a look at them on the internet, on YouTube. We have them. Now, if you want to come to our training and learn how all this stuff is actually applied, we have vendor neutral training, which means that we use applications from a whole bunch of different vendors to show these concepts. And you can earn your certified OPC professional designation by attending one of our hands-on workshops where you learn to configure DCOM and OPC UA. You learn to troubleshoot these OPC systems, learn how to properly secure these systems. You also troubleshoot it. You learn OPC best practices. And of course, you have your own computer. So we actually provide you with computers that you can mess around with. You can try things you'd never try to do on your own systems. You'll configure DCOM, OPC UA, you'll apply the security, you'll see firewalls, user accounts. So you see all of that. It's actually a pretty exciting class. And again, vendor neutral. We do use applications from several different vendors to show the concepts. These workshops are live and remote. So we have live and remote classes, which means that there is no travel at all. You're dealing with a live instructor. This is all interactive. So everything is interactive. You ask questions, you get answers right away. You see what's going on. Now, before the class, you can watch some of the recorded sessions if you want, or you can use them later on afterward and actually get more information. So all of that you can do, but when you come to class, nothing there is actually recorded. We have public classes, so you can join other people in a public class, and we also have private training if you want that specifically for your company. We also, of course, do all of this in person. So if you want to travel a little bit, we do hold these in public locations and also in private. So if you want somebody to come directly to your company, we do that as well. And you can take a look at dates at opcti.com. So last slide, and then I'm going to get back to your questions. So you're going to get an email on Monday with a few links in it. So number one, you're going to get a link to this webinar recording. You will also get a link to download OPC Expert so you can try it out if you want. You're also going to get a whole bunch of short videos showing examples with MQTT, how to subscribe, how to publish, how to set up the broker, how to do bulk item configuration, and so on. And you can actually go there right now, in fact, at opcexpert.com/MQTT. So you can do that right now. You're also going to get an invitation to our next webinar, which is covering OPC to REST API. And we'll show you how OPC works with REST API. So you can actually access OPC data directly from your Python applications or JavaScript or VBA or C# or C++ applications on a whole bunch of different platforms. In fact, you can even do this from your phone and see trends right on your phone without having to download or install any specific phone app. So if you've got Android, actually see all this stuff working. So that's going to be next month. That will be at the end of March, and you will see how all this stuff is done. If you have any questions, you can email us, info@opcti.com, or give a call. That's once again, everyone, this ends the formal portion of this webinar. If you have to go, please do so, and I hope to see you at our next webinar. If you can stay a little bit longer, I'll answer your questions.